What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We are back with another preview video. This one is going to be for Italy versus Argentina. For anyone who hasn't seen these preview videos before, what we do is we chuck on a game of Rugby 20 in the background of the teams that are going to be playing, and then over the top we talk about the official teams that have been named to play in this match in real life, and then we go through the team, we think about who we think is going to do well, who we think is going to do badly, and finally we give a score prediction on how we think the game's going to go. It's going to be an interesting one. This is the first game that's going to be starting off this weekend, so let's get this game kicked off and underway. Alrighty, Tommaso Allan will get us kicked off and underway. We'll start off going right. We got a bit of wind behind us there. We'll see if we can get it kicked off. Oh, we got all the way to the touchline as well. That was a pretty good start. Right, so into this game. Italy versus Argentina. This is one of the games for when I did the original preview videos for this series going to be going on. This was one of the games I was most excited about seeing. Italy are slowly beginning to generate a bit of a team together. They're slowly getting a bit more aggression, a bit more confident. They're not just playing the standard Italy way. There's new players. They're getting more and more exciting. And Argentina have had a little bit of a downward spiral since that win over the All Blacks over a year ago now. They're slowly beginning to lose more games, even though they've got pretty much the same set team. They've been flying around for the last 18 months without really going home, just playing as a set team. And they're struggling a little bit. If we go over to the games last week, I'd say he was playing Italy. Let's talk about Italy first of all. Italy last week played New Zealand and lost considerably. However, it was nice to see the way they were playing New Zealand. They weren't really sort of scared of playing New Zealand. They put on a pretty good team against them. And for that first half, really, they really held out quite well. There were a lot of sort of uncharacteristic New Zealand faults that went on there in that match. But Italy, every single time they had a penalty, they were going for the corner. They tried to back their own line out. They were backing their own mauls. They weren't unfortunately getting over the try line anytime soon. They came away with some points just from kicking penalties. And they had a good 3 or 4 attempts of just going to the corner that had they taken those ones as well, they could have had an extra 12 points. The scoreboard probably would have looked more friendly than it did for Wales versus New Zealand, to be honest, if they'd taken all the points. So Italy are beginning to move up in the world a little bit, and they're slowly beginning to put this team together. On to this match. This is a game I really think Italy can target. Argentina are struggling a little bit, and there might be the opportunity for them to grab a good little win here against a Tier 1 nation. So let's check out the team that has been announced for this game. So starting off in this front row, Ivan Nemeth, Lucchesi, and Riccioni, or Riccioni as some of the commentators call him. It's sort of a mid-range front row for me here. There's definitely been a lot of switches from that New Zealand game, and I don't actually think this is a terrible move. I think what they've done here is put on maybe the second string front row, because Argentina, although they like to target that scrum, they definitely sort of have that for the first sort of 70 minutes of the game. What Italy are doing is put on their second string, basically just to try and prolong that and then put some big boys on later on. And you'll be able to reinforce yourself against that Argentina scrum and actually take away a little bit of their advantage. And I don't think that's a terrible move. Moving back towards the locks, Canone and Ceci, of course, you know, two of their pretty standard locks now they like to have in this team. The line-out could have gone a little bit better for them, potentially, in that New Zealand game, but it's very hard to call. New Zealand have far, far talented players involved in that line-out situation, so it's quite tough to call, but they're both doing really well, especially even at like club level and stuff. They're beginning to move up a little bit now. Into the back row, then, Sebastian Negri, Lamaro retains the captaincy, and Giovanni Licata? I actually don't know that name too much. I'll be interested to see how he gets on. Lamaro has taken over that captaincy now from Bigi. I don't think he's been playing super terribly, Bigi, but Lamaro getting in there now with the captaincy. I think it's nice to switch it up a little bit, let a different bit of leadership take role, and allow them to sort of try and generate a bit of a new team for the new age, especially with a very, very tough World Cup coming on. Looking forward towards the backs then. We've got a new halfback partnership in Stephen Varney and Garby. So in fact, the Stephen Varney start last week. I'm trying to remember now. Might have messed that up. They might have had the same halfback partnership last week. Garby's still playing as well as he ever does, to be fair. It's nice to see, you know, a young lad be confident in this sport. The All Blacks are certainly a dominating team, but he brought it to them. There was a lot of interesting kicks. He's trying to break some lines himself. He was hitting those 3 points when you needed him to. He was going to, you know, he's a dependable fly half, and it's nice that Italy have finally got someone that they can sort of rely on now in that fly half position. In terms of the centre partnership here, Maurici and Brex. So this is a slightly different switch-up. I think they had Zan on last week. Maurici plays good rugby, and it's nice to be seeing him get in there. Brex, yeah, is again also finding those little bits of room. I think is one for Brex. I think defensively, I like him. I think defensively he's pretty sound. It's just that attack he just needs a little bit more room to work with. And sometimes this Italy team can struggle to get room to players, especially when you've got sort of fast-flowing defensive teams like New Zealand just rush off the line so quickly. Argentina, I'm trying to think about like a defensive setup. They are slightly slower, so we might have the potential here for Italy to have a bit more room and a bit more space to actually try and release some of these backs who do have great speed about them. Speaking of which, let's have a look at the actual wingers and so on. So Montana Ioane in that left wing shirt, Eduardo Padovani on the right wing, and Minozzi in this 15 shirt. And to be honest now, this 9 to 15 is beginning to look a little bit more standard now for this Italy team. They're all very good players. They all bring something very different. Montana Ioane, for me, the only real negative is the defensive element. The attacking element from him is brilliant. If he finds that open room, he will just run through everyone and will absolutely make the most of it. Padovani is a bit of an old hand now in the world of rugby. He knows what he's doing, and everyone still needs to know what he brings. Again, the ability for the inside step from Padovani normally good, and it just needs a bit of room to work. And I'm wondering if they can stretch this Argentinian line a little bit wide, and those gaps begin to open up, we could be seeing that work to their advantage. Something that I would like to see from this Italy team actually is a bit more of the inclusion of the new roles. Things like the 50-22. One of the big things that you seem to notice now in the Argentinian backline, they're not necessarily the best at covering a great deal of space, and having some people like Minozzi, like Padovani, like Garbisi, all have the talent to get those kicks, get those 50-22s in, maybe help back you forwards a little bit by getting a 50-22. I think that would be a nice manoeuvre for them to work on. As we near half-time now, as we're still struggling to keep back this Argentinian team in the game in the background, we'll talk about the substitutions coming on. So, in the replacement front row, Luca Bigi, Fischetti, and Casarelli. So, there's, again, this is what I mean. So, there's two big names there in Bigi and Fischetti. I think arguably it's probably a stronger front row that's going to come on in that second half, and I don't think that's a bad move, because Argentinian discipline not necessarily the best. There's every chance there could be yellow cards, there could be red cards in this game, there could be injuries. It's a tough old game playing against Argentina, so there's every chance their scrum might actually not hold out, for a good chunk of the game. So having your reserves come on, be as strong as you're starting, if not stronger, means you can combat that scrum a little bit more in the second half. Moving further back, we've got Fusa and Rutza, which is, so again, another couple of high-end players in, especially in terms of like lock departments. Locks, they're going to be running a little bit away with here now. I think if they can target that line out, I'm trying to think back now to the Argentinian line out. They don't really have a lot of like mega high-end jumpers. I sort of think of two when I think of Argentina. So there's every chance if you can sort of mess about with their line out a bit, they can't give them a platform to launch from. That might also hinder them. And then looking a little bit further back, Giovanni Patinelli, which is not a name I know a great deal about, so that'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Alessandro Fusco and Federico Mori. So, what will the substitutions be here? Again, Mori's ability to play a couple of different positions. I think they got relatively decent coverage. I think as a 1 to 23, this is a nice setup for a team. It's going to be about more the way they're going to bring into this game their actual game plan. They seem to have a tactic against New Zealand. They were willing to take the game to New Zealand. The only problem is that New Zealand are going to play that full 80 and they will slowly begin to chip away at you. Argentina, on the other hand, definitely have some areas you can exploit. However, they will come and face you quite head on. Italy have got to be ready for the aggressive pressure. They've got to be ready to be defensive and be patient enough to wait for those turnovers to come. One big thing that I'm not really seeing a lot of here necessarily in there is any terms of big jacklers, especially missing people like Stain. Pelledri, I don't even know where Pelledri is anymore. Sebastian Negri doesn't mind getting over the ball on occasion, but there could be a bit of an issue. If they can't stop the attack, you need to be able to turn the ball over somewhere along the line. So we'll see how that holds out for Italy. Talking about their opponents then, coming up against Argentina. Argentina had a bit of a narrow loss, actually, to France. They played much better than I was expecting. It wasn't necessarily the top flight team for Argentina from my own knowledge of the Argentinian team. But they certainly played well, and they certainly took the game to France. France trying out a bunch of different manoeuvres. They managed to hold out very well defensively. I think Sean Edwards will probably be quite happy with that French defence. But Argentina have sort of shown their hand a little bit of how they're going to play. They're just going to be in your face. They're going to be riled up. They want to get in there. They want to be having a bit of a scrap. But I think one of the big things for Argentina is just going to be that discipline and holding it, not getting into fights, don't throw punches. We saw the referee have those issues in the Argentinian-France game, started giving out yellow cards, and it's always the same people. So we'll have to see how they get on just holding their own discipline. In terms of the team then, in this front row, Thomas Gallo, Julian Montoya, and Francisco Gomez Cordella. So this was the same front row we saw going in against France. And in all honesty, it was a pretty decent scrum. It was a pretty decent setup. They definitely looked like they were going to be able to take it. France are slowly building now to have a much more dominant scrum, especially with coming up in the World Cup. People like New Zealand, they need to work on their scrum. So I think Argentina got some good practice in against a top-tier scrum there. In the lock departments, Marcos Kramer and Thomas Lavanini. So again, you know, there's a couple of names there that are going to be the issue for disciplines. Don't need to start fights. You don't need to be giving away 1,000 penalties in the game. You can hold the team together. I really hope Italy... I'm going to be back in Italy. I don't want to sound too biased. I do want to back Italy. I would like to see Italy win a game against another top-tier nation. So it would be nice to see Italy actually using those 3 points when you can give away penalties and stuff. Argentina will give away penalties, so it would be nice for them to try and utilise that or try and get into the corner a little bit. In terms of the back row, Pablo Matera, Juan Martin Gonzalez, and Facundo Issa, which I'm always going to pronounce his first name wrong. I apologise for that. Pablo Matera, again, an aggressive player, but I actually got a lot of respect for the man on the pitch. He does get himself involved with a couple of fights every now and again, but he definitely tries to hold back his team if they're messing about a bit. If he knows a yellow card's coming, no need to get involved, but an extremely good player, and you can't afford to just sort of let him loose a little bit. In terms of the backs then, Thomas Cubelli and Santiago Carreras will be taking over in that halfback partnership again. They work very well together against France, to be honest. They definitely, were beginning to work quite well. The synergy between them is pretty decent. They offer two very different styles of rugby as well, which is nice to see. In the centre partnership, De La Fuente and Matias Moroni. Again, this is becoming a bit of a standard Argentina team now. I do begin to struggle a little bit of what to talk about. And in fact, we have the same back three again in Mateo Carreras, brother of Santiago. We found that out in the match. That was fun. Santiago Cordello and Boffelli in that fullback shirt. So they're not messing about. They're treating Italy the same way they were going to treat France. And I would probably rate France a little bit higher than Italy in terms of the ability to bring a game to you. So, we saw how they played against against France, So I definitely think Italy are in for a tough game. And in terms of the replacements, then we've got Bosch, Ignacio Calles is going to be making his debut at some point, and Santiago Medrano. So there you go. There's the front row coming in that second half. So maybe there's the opportunity here for Italy to take that scrum in that second half. New debutant, got a lot of work on him, a lot of pressure, potential there. In terms of replacement forwards, Lucas Paulos, Santiago Grondona, again, not a name I know a great deal about. Gonzalo Bertrano, Nicolas Sanchez, and Lucio Cinti. So, again, the sort of similar bench to last week. Definitely a couple of big changes. I still think it's a pretty top-tier Argentina team. But I do think this is the game Italy could target to try and get that first sort of tier 1 win in an awful long time for them, unfortunately. But it would be nice to see them be able to get a game in and have a win like that. So what are we going to talk about in terms of a score prediction? So for me, although I want Italy to win, I'm still going to lean towards Argentina for this one. I think it will come down to who can take over that scrum, take over the forwards. This is going to be a very forwards-based game, I reckon. It's just going to be two teams trying to rile each other up and dominate each other's scrums. I'm going to give the leniency slightly more to the Argentina team, having played slightly higher teams or higher ranked teams now for the past year, and managing to play teams like New Zealand, South Africa, Australia and France, and working that scrum quite well. Italy certainly up against it, so there's a potential there. So I'm going to call an Argentina win, and I'm going to call an Argentina win by 12. I'm going to say 12. I'm going to go sort of in that middle bracket. But of course, guys, I am but one man talking nonsense about rugby. So make sure you drop down in the comments what you think the score prediction will be. Who do you think is going to do well? Who do you think is going to do badly? And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop it a like. And if you want to keep up to date with all of the videos as they come out on the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification. But I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.